The Xbox 360 had many unforgettable games, and some of its best exclusiveness still hold up today. Whether you like shooters or epic adventures, the Xbox 360 provided experiences you couldn't find anywhere else. Games like Gears of War and Halo 3 weren't just games, they defined the console of an entire generation of gamers. If you're feeling nostalgic or just curious about what made this console shine, it's time to take a look at the best Xbox 360 exclusives. When it comes to iconic Xbox 360 exclusives, Halo easily takes the crown. Halo Reach took the series to new heights with its gripping story of Noble Team's final stand, while Halo 3 delivered a satisfying conclusion to Master Chief's original trilogy. And then there's Halo 4, which launched the Reclaimer saga, offering deeper emotional depth and stunning visuals for the time. The multiplayer modes across these titles are legendary, with addictive gameplay that kept the Xbox Live community thriving for years. Whether you're into a campaign or just love competitive multiplayer, Halo is pure Xbox gold. If you're talking about must-play exclusives on the 360, the Gears of War trilogy has to be on that list. Gears 1 introduced players to the brutal and visceral combat that defined the series, with its intense cover-based shooting and chainsaw executions. Gears 2 cranked up the action and added more emotional weight, while Gears 3 tied everything together with an epic conclusion that still sticks with fans today. The co-op mode, Horde, was groundbreaking, and the multiplayer matches were endlessly competitive, cementing Gears as a powerhouse franchise for Xbox. For racing fans, Forza Motorsport was the holy grail of the Xbox 360. Forza Motorsport 2 set a solid foundation with its simulation-style racing, but it was Forza 3 and Forza 4 that really showcased the 360's potential. The attention to detail in car physics, handling, and customization options was unparalleled. These games offered an immersive driving experience that could appeal to both casual players and hardcore racing enthusiasts. And with the ability to race online with friends, Forza became the definitive racing franchise of its generation. The Fable series was always a bit quirky, and that's part of what made it so lovable. Fable 2 really hits its stride, offering a world full of charm, humor, and meaningful choices that could affect the entire narrative. Whether you wanted to be a hero or a villain, your decisions mattered. Fable 3 expanded on the formula with more political elements, allowing you to rule as a monarch. And then there's Fable Anniversary, the remastered version of the original Fable, which allowed fans to revisit Albion in all its glory. It's hard not to get sucked into this game's whimsical worlds. Project Gotham Racing 4 might not get as much attention as other racing titles, but it was a true gem on the Xbox 360. What set it apart was its focus on style, earning kudos points for pulling off drifts and high-speed maneuvers made it feel different from more traditional racing games. The car and bike combination was a great addition too. Visually, it was stunning for its time, and the rain and weather effects are some of the best of the console. PGR4 delivered a unique, stylish racing experience that had a dedicated fanbase. If you're into open-world chaos, Crackdown was your game on the 360. The first Crackdown let you play as a super-powered agent, leaping across skyscrapers and taking out crime bosses in a city filled with explosion and destruction. It was all about freedom. Whether you wanted to take out enemies with guns, fists, or by throwing cars at them, it was up to you. Crackdown 2 followed up with even more mayhem, adding new abilities and co-op gameplay that allowed you and your friends to tear up the city together. These games were pure, unfiltered fun. For JRPG lovers, Lost Odyssey was an unforgettable experience on the Xbox 360. With a story penned by Final Fantasy creator Hirobono Sakaguchi, it allowed Cain, an immortal man burdened with centuries of memories and emotional weight. The turn-based combat felt like a throwback to the classic JRPGs, but with a modern twist. The game's dream sequences, short stories that delved into Kame's past, were some of the most emotionally powerful moments in any game. Lost Odyssey was proof that Xbox could deliver a top-tier RPG experience that rivaled anything on PlayStation. Another JRPG exclusive that deserves mention is Blue Dragon. Created by the same team behind Final Fantasy, it combined colorful visuals with a classic turn-based combat system. What set Blue Dragon apart was its whimsical world and its character designs, which were done by Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama. The story follows a group of young heroes who can summon magical shadows to battle enemies, leading to some pretty creative combat strategies. It was a great introduction to JRPGs for Xbox fans and is still remembered fondly by those who played it. When Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts came out, it was a bit of departure from the platforming gameplay fans were used to, but once you got into its vehicle building mechanics, it became one of the most creative and fun games on the Xbox 360. You could build all sorts of crazy machines to solve puzzles and complete challenges, from cars to planes to read hybrids. It was a game that encouraged experimentation and rewarded creativity. While it may not have been the Banjo fans were expecting, Nuts and Bolts carved out its own niche with charm and innovation. Kameo Elements of Power was one of the early exclusives on the 360, and it showed off the console's ability to handle large, colorful environments. The game centered around Kameo, a young elf who could transform into various element warriors, each with unique abilities that helped you solve puzzles and defeat enemies. It had a unique blend of action, adventure, and platforming that made it stand out. Plus, its fantasy world was beautifully realized, making it one of those early games that really showcased what the 360 was capable of. Shadow Complex was an unexpected hit on the Xbox Live Arcade, delivering a modern take on the classic Metroidvania style of gameplay. You play as Jason Fleming, navigating a massive underground complex filled with enemies, puzzles, and hidden upgrades. The mix of 2D platforming and 3D graphics make you feel fresh, while still giving players the satisfying feeling of unlocking new areas and abilities as they progressed. For fans of exploration-heavy games, Shadow Complex was the must-play that stood tall among 360 exclusives. Alan Wake was more than just a game, it was an experience. Blending psychological horror with action, the game followed a writer whose stories started coming to life in terrifying ways. The small town of Bright Falls felt like something out of a Stephen King novel, and the use of light as a weapon against darkness was a clever mechanic that kept you on edge. The episodic structure, complete with cliffhangers, made you feel you were playing through a TV series. Alan Wake was one of the most atmospheric and story-driven games on the Xbox 360. If you're into hack-and-slash games with massive battles, 999 Nights 2 was right up your alley. You take on waves of enemies, Dynasty Warrior style, while pulling off devastating combos and special attacks. The game's epic scale with hundreds of enemies on screen at once made you feel like an unstoppable force. It wasn't just about mindless button mashing though. There was a layer of strategy involved as you navigated large battlefields and used the right character for each mission. 999 Nights 2 delivered some intense action moments that scratched the chaotic combat itch. Dead Rising was a game all about survival and mayhem. You played as Frank West, a photojournalist trapped in a mall overrun by zombies. The sheer number of zombies on screen was impressive for its time, but what really set the game apart was the freedom it gave you. Want to smack zombies around with a frying pan? Go for it. Build your own crazy weapons? Absolutely. There was a time limit to beat the game, but the real fun was in the sandbox-like nature of the mall, where you could experiment with different ways to fend off the undead. If you're a fan of fast-paced fighting games, Dead or Alive 4 was one of the best experiences on the Xbox 360. The fluid combat system with its unique counter holds made every fight feel dynamic and tense. Not to mention, the game's roster was packed with a diverse set of characters, each with their own moves and fighting styles. Perfect Dark Zero might not have lived up to the legendary status of its N64 predecessor, but it was still a strong shooter on the Xbox 360. Set as a prequel to the original Perfect Dark, you played as Johanna Dark in a cyberpunk world full of espionage and high-tech weaponry. The campaign was fun, but the multiplayer was where the game really shined. When The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings landed on the Xbox 360, it was a huge deal. RPG fans who didn't have a gaming PC could finally dive into the deep, complex world of Geralt of Rivia. The Enhanced Edition came with all the extra content, including new quests and cutscenes, making it the definitive way to experience the game on console. Splinter Cell Conviction was a refreshing twist on the Splinter Cell formula. While it kept the series focused on stealth, it ramped up the action, giving players more tools for fast, brutal takedowns. You played as Sam Fisher, an ex-government agent of the run, using everything from high-tech gadgets to pure combat skills to take out enemies. When AMP3 hit the Xbox 360, it brought a completely different vibe to snowboarding games. Rather than focusing purely on realism like other titles, AMP3 embraced a wacky, fun-loving attitude with crazy storylines, over-the-top characters, and wild customization options. The snowboarding itself was smooth and satisfying, but the game really shined when you leaned into its goofy side. Chromehounds was a mech combat game that didn't get as much attention as it deserved, but for those who played it, it was a hidden gem. You piloted massive, customizable mechs in a large-scale tactical battles that emphasized teamwork. The game's multiplayer mode was its biggest draw, where players could form squads and strategize together to take down enemy forces. BattleBlock Theater brought some of the most chaotic fun to the Xbox Live Arcade. This quirky platformer had a hilarious story about shipwrecked prisoners forced to perform in dangerous stage plays for a group of evil cats. The gameplay was a perfect blend of tricky platforming, puzzling levels, and chaotic multiplayer. Whether you were playing solo or co-op, the levels offered endless creativity and laughs. If you love a challenge, Trials Evolution was one of the most addictive games on the Xbox 360. This physics-based motorcycle game tests out your precision as you navigated increasingly difficult obstacle courses. The simple controls valued the game's depth, and mastering each course felt incredibly satisfying. It also featured a robust track editor, allowing players to create and share their own insane levels. State of Decay was one of the most immersive zombie survival games on the Xbox 360. Unlike other zombie games that focused on action, this one was all about managing resources, building a community, and surviving in a world overrun by the undead. You had to make tough decisions, who to trust, when to scavenge, and where to build your base, because one wrong move could mean the end of your group. So did you like the games I recommend? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me, and activate the bell, because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. Thank you very much for following me this far, and until next time, bye!